Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast bringing the local fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I'm Butch Theory, and today I'm co-hosting with Captain Richard Rutland, cold-blooded fishing. How are we doing today, Captain Richard?
What's shaking? Man, doing great, dude. Wish we could cool down some. Golly, man, you can't drink enough water or beer or Gatorade or anything to stay hydrated right now, man. It's almost impossible.
I think it was well into hundreds today.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The real heat was like 99 last time I looked, and that was about 11 a.m.
Golly, it's been hot. I'm just praying for it to cool down a taste. Looks like we might get a little tropical system up our way, possibly in the next 4 or 5 days moving into the Gulf. That's a possibility. That could definitely help cool some stuff down. Water temperatures have been well above 90 degrees. I mean, that is insane.
Yeah,
to think about.
A picture that Captain Patric posted yesterday. It's like 91.4 or something.
I was speaking with him. We're going to talk to him in a little while. But I was talking to him after our guide trips up on the causeway today, and he said he saw 94 degrees today. 94 degrees.
That's crazy.
You could almost cook an egg in the water.
You can't even jump in to cool off, for sure. That's hotter than my bathtub. That's not good, man. Well, I mean, is fishing reflecting that? You guys seeing it slow down some? Or?
It's slowed down quite a bit. Patrick was up on the causeway yesterday, and he said the fish were pretty active yesterday, and then today it was just it was like they either are retreated to deeper water and are just not there, and then the fish that we did see weren't real reactive to
anything.
To anything, not live bait, not artificial bait, nothing. We caught a few redfish up there, so mostly what we were doing. But man, the speckled trout fishing's been really tough. The days I've been trout fishing, it's been just you have to weed through a zillion tiny fish to catch just a few keepers. It's been really hard to even come by like a 1 or 2 man limit some days. And that's pretty much just the word on the street with everybody. It's just a tough time. This is also a transition month as well, so some of that's expected, but some cooler weather will definitely get some things moving right now. I think. Golly, I just can't wait.
I know it. I think we need a little cold snap or even just a little bit of a break, just kind of get things going, like you're saying, cool off the water just a little bit and kind of fire everything back off.
Yeah, like if a tropical system did come along, it would definitely cool off just a taste, but you don't exactly want to welcome them this time of year, especially when the water temperature is 94 degrees. That's really going to fire a storm
a little
off.
Scary.
So, anyway,
I was looking
I'm not hoping for that by any means. But
no, they were saying that one now is, I guess it's just a whatever you call it right now, like 60% chance of becoming something tropical.
Yeah, within the next 4 or 5 days. That's what I saw while we were eating lunch this afternoon.
Guess we'll see.
Yep.
How much you can do about it.
That's it. Well, who are we talking to first today?
All right, man. Let's we're going to have the special guest. We're going to have Director Scott Bannon on the show. This week's show is brought to us by our local Geico insurance office. Everybody knows Geico has great auto rates, but did you know they also have great rates on boats, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercraft? Give Ron Davis a call at 251-445-0053. Not only will Ron work hard to get you the lowest premium possible, but you'll have the service you expect and can count on if you ever need to make a claim. Geico does even more than insure your valuable items. They also offer on-the-water services like towing, battery jumps, gas delivery, and you can save by bundling these services with your insurance. If you're an Alabama saltwater fisherman, support the local insurance agent who helps bring you this fishing report each week. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-AL. All right, man. We got those extra couple of days in October, the first week in October. Let's
exciting.
Heck yeah, it's exciting. Make some ceviche. I'm ready. Let's see what Director Scott Bannon has to say about that.
Welcome to the show, Scott Bannon. How you doing, Director, Alabama Marine Resources?
Great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, welcome back, man. We appreciate the extra days. What's that, October 4, 5, and 6? Is that correct?
That is. It's be the first weekend there in October. You're going to get all 3 days, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like we've done through the rest of the summer.
What are we getting days for?
We're getting days because the weather has not been very cooperative. And so under our exempted fishing permit, the EFP for 2018 and 2019, we have a certain number of pounds that we were allowed to fish. And last year, unfortunately, we got to fish a lot, and the weather was great, and we ended a little early. This year's been a little more typical weather. It has gotten in the way of fishing. Anglers have done what we've asked them to do and not push the limits. If the weather's not good for them, don't go. We're still going to have those pounds, and So we had hoped for a little bit of a Labor Day weekend run while people still had the boat out and ready to go, and the weather didn't cooperate with it. So we looked at the calendar and said, well, what are some days that we think will provide the best opportunity for people to go? Because we are now into the other outdoor seasons of bird hunting and deer hunting and things like that. We'd like to get a little cooler weather. That's been a big discussion from the public, is they'd like to fish during cooler weather. And with fishing, we want to get ahead of the wind. So it looked like October 4th, 5th, and 6th fit the bill.
Man, that's awesome. Really, golly, it's really amazing to think about how far we have come with our reef fishing program here along the Gulf Coast, whereas we're keeping a better count of the actual fish. There's not people just going through a parking lot and counting trailers. Which is
the deal. The snapper check is why we have the additional days, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
it is absolutely the reason. And this year reporting was right around the 50+%, which is good. And
that's way up.
It helps us have confidence in the decisions we make. It helps us track those fish. We also had our survey crews from the Marine Resources Division did a great job. They really hit it hard when looking at the numbers of vessels they surveyed and the numbers of fish that they weighed and measured and got data from were phenomenal. And you can only do that when they have it on their mind that they want to do a good job and that they want to get good data. And we probably doubled some of those numbers. We still had the same number of survey days, but the numbers of fish and vessels that they intercepted and that people were willing to let our staff survey, that's part of it too. And so I appreciate that from the public, letting our staff do it, because that's a crucial part, is getting those averages, the average weights, and that's part of the program. And, we saw that, rodeo weekend, the average weight was up. Why? Because people are targeting big fish for the rodeo. It's the United States largest fishing rodeo, and so we were glad to see it. We saw lots of fish come in there, and then the weights kind of go back down a little bit for other weekends, and so that's an important part of that snapper check program, is the reporting and then that dockside survey that our staff does.
That's awesome. So I've had some people ask me, about next year. This isn't going to negatively impact anything, correct? It's not going to affect next year, or?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Not as far as the number of fish goes or anything like that.
Right.
We have a buffer inside that exempted fishing permit that we were working towards, so we're right around that, and I'm pretty confident in our landings data and what we're getting, so that we can push the total pounds that we're gonna fish right up to the mark if we can. So most likely, if the weather's fair, this is just going to be it. We're inside that, or will be inside that buffer. We'll have met the requirements of the exempted fishing permit, and next year we should be in a full-time state management that is approved by the federal government, and the Gulf states will then manage it, and we'll have a little more flexibility in how we do it next year. But as long as we don't go over, there's no payback. And so I think we're really set up well for next year's season. We'll have more data on some weekdays. We had some weekdays we added in there this year, looking at the numbers. And it's a little more realistic snapshot of typical weather. And we had these long weekends. So we'll try and plan next year's season accordingly. And with the new refish permit, we're potentially going to send out some surveys to people that fish for refish and ask them some questions. Hey, does a season like season A work well for you? Or does season B work well for you? Or what would you like to see different? So as we move forward in state management, those are some of the questions that we want to answer, because, we do this for the people of Alabama. We don't do this for the people of DCNR.
Will we have a similar length of season next year as far as number of days and poundage that we'll be able to harvest next year as well? Be similar, or do we not know that? Is it too early to tell?
Well, the pounds will be very similar, a little bit of a bump up because we go to the state management where we actually increase by about 1%. We'll get 26.3% of the Gulf total allowable catch. So we were at 25% for the exempted fishing permit. So we get a little bit of a bump in the pounds. So when you add that, it's still very similar to what this year was. And so being able to take the 2017 and 2018 seasons, which 2017 was kind of an extreme with fantastic weather. 2018 was probably a little more realistic, and doing these long weekends and looking at the amounts of fish that were harvested. We will we actually have a calculator. Kevin Anson, our chief biologist, created a calculator that adds in effort based on wave height and some other factors. It's an amazing little tool that we can use to kind of guesstimate, so to speak, at what a season would look like for next year. So days, it's probably going to look closer to probably a 30-ish day. That's probably a more realistic number versus 20 or over 30 days. And then you've accounted for the weather. So if you have a bad weather weekend, you say, yes, we knew we were going to have some bad weather weekends, but we're going this many days to make up for that. So It's just a little bit different view of it.
And then what about on the for hire side? I guess you don't really have any control or anything to do with the for hire side either, huh?
Other than the for hire side does use Snapper Check. They report through Snapper Check. And so we have some data and some pretty consistent data over the last couple of years where the Snapper Check numbers and the federal survey numbers have been relatively close, actually very close over the last couple of years. So looking at this season, our data is much more real time. So it's a lot shorter span of time that we have to wait to look at the landings for them. Our landings say that they were down a little bit this year. So if you look at it across the Gulf of Mexico, that means everywhere it was probably a little bit low. They had 62 days this year, so chances are they'll get a very similar season. I don't know, maybe a bump up next year, but we won't know until all of the data is in. They do theirs in waves, and it'll be after the first of the year before they make any kind of announcement about that. But I think they had a little bit of a reduction in landings from the Alabama side anyway.
Well, man, that's awesome to hear. We're excited about the additional days, and just seems like that Snapper Check is the key. It makes it much more of a dynamic calendar quota. I mean,
That's right.
It's real time.
That's right. I think
it is. And remember, it's we have a certain number of fish. If you go out and catch a bunch of great big fish, then yes, it eats up the pounds quicker. If you have great weather, it's typically going to eat up the pounds a little quicker. But if you have a typical year like this year, the days are going to get spread out, and I have said all along, and the commissioner, Chris Blankenship, and has said we're gonna work to those pounds. We're gonna be flexible in how we address the angler needs, and so far most people have been pretty pleased with the long weekend. Again, a little bit of some discussion, maybe like some more weekdays, so maybe throw a Thursday in there or a Monday in there to help spread the effort out a little bit. Some people would choose to fish on a lower effort day so they're not dealing with the hassles at the boat ramp. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yes, sir.
So then we would, so we'll look at that for this next year. I'm really considering trying to add a few more weekdays in there to help out some of those folks that don't get to fish weekends.
That's right. Well, you're not ever going to keep everybody happy, but I feel like you guys have really gone out of your way to make the system work in the best possible
Hear what the
manner.
public wants as well.
That's right. You actually take public's
testimony
and whatnot in for that's just amazing. You literally cannot ask for any more than what you guys have done, and I really appreciate it.
Well, I ask, when sometimes people call and they're upset, and I said, that's okay. I said, of course, I don't want you to be mad at me, but I want you to be honest with me. And if you're honest with me, then that's how we affect change. And so when some folks have called and they're not happy with certain things, when you give them the bigger picture, a lot of times that mindset changes a little bit. But they're giving me, from their perspective, what works well for them, and we want to hear that from a lot of people. And so we can kind of mold things to meet the needs of the Alabama angler and the anglers of the southeastern part of the country, because again, they come here and fish, so it's very important to us. October is likely to be a locals fishing weekend because it's just much harder this time of year for people from out of state to come.
School's in and football season and all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
Yes, it is.
Well, Director Bannon, we really appreciate you being on again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Guys, thank you for the opportunity, and I hope you guys get a chance to go fishing.
Me too. Thanks.
Thank you. Man, it's always great to hear from Director Bannon, man. He had a lot of really great things to tell us.
Doing some cool stuff, man.
It sure was. All right, Butch, who we got next?
Let's head on down to the Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, Gulf State Park Pier, see what the old Pier Pounder's been up to. How we doing, Mr. David?
Very good, Butch. How about y'all guys?
We're good, man. Staying cool in the AC here
we
right
are
now.
in the AC right now, thank the Lord.
That's a good thing in this day and age. I tell you, it's still
hot.
summertime for sure.
We were just talking about how we're ready for the cool down.
the days on the pier when the wind's not blowing, it is, they were carting them off on those little buggies the other day.
Oh, no. I bet,
yeah,
but
there
I
were
believe
people
it.
falling out. You really have to stay hydrated, and,
Heck
it's hard to remember to do sometimes when you're, catching fish pretty good, and you don't, all of a sudden you realize.
Drinking too many of them Bud Lights.
Yeah, you can't have any alcohol on the pier, on the state pier.
Oh, really?
Man,
yeah, it's got to be non-alcoholic.
I have a hard time with that, David, remembering to drink water, because all I want to do when I'm on the boat is just freaking hunt. I'm just hunting fish.
Get in the zone.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
it never stops. I don't stop hunting until the boat hits the trailer. Then
Oh, I know. I fish with you a good bit. I know.
I'm a grinder. I'm sure David is too on that pier.
Oh yeah, you have to. It's like you never know when that opportunity will pop up.
That's
and
it. You never know what's going to happen.
Take advantage of it.
Yeah, how's the fishing been? What you been chasing? What they've been eating?
It's been pretty good. A continuation of what I'd been reporting the last couple of times, and it's been the Spanish are there in good numbers. The only fly in the ointment has been that most of them have been pretty small. There have been some bigger ones showing up, and up to like knocking on 2 pounds. But they're nice fish and a lot of fun on medium and light tackle. They did catch a king Monday, so they're hopefully that'll be starting back here pretty soon, whenever the water cools off. The biggest news though has been the redfish that are hanging around the pier. Some nice medium 20s, upper slot size reds, and they're schooling around the pier and under the pier, and giving folks, great opportunities, not just to catch their limit, but to maybe even do some catch and release and fool around, do some different things with them. The other day I caught one on a gulp jig, a gulp shrimp with on a jig head, and then caught one and lost several that I couldn't even stop from the pilings on live bait, and then caught my last one on a gulp jig too. And that's neat because you can oftentimes sight fish those schools.
That'd be
the
fun.
water's been pretty calm and clear. It's nice to find fish that are apt to eat in those kind of conditions, because a lot of times, like with the speckled trout, they'll be kind of finicky. But these reds, there's so much competition in those big schools that they just pounce on anything that comes by.
Yep, that's always been my experience. Hey, let's back up to your mackerel conversation. As we're approaching fall here, what kind of time frame do you guys usually see? I guess maybe water temperature wise or conditions wise, where you see the mackerels, like the kings and the bigger size, like fall run Spanish mackerels, start to show back up on the beaches, and that really start to kick off.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're right on the cusp of that, probably, kind of slipping out of the summer pattern, the end of summer pattern. The days are getting shorter, and these fish, are realizing they need to, tank up for the journey before they migrate away. So they're the smaller Spanish that are about 12 inches or so are in a hurry to grow up, and they'll eat anything that moves, any kind of small flashing spoon, stuff like that. And you can just really, like, catching them on a spec rig 2 at a time, and, crazy stuff like that. The bubble rigs have been just off the chain, catching a lot of them. And what we've been seeing, though, these fish that were 11, 12 inches a few weeks ago now are like 12 to 14 inches. They're growing that quickly.
Wow.
And also there's a progression of more and more larger fish moving, I guess, from the west, and they're feeding on this big crop of young of the year, alewives, as everybody calls them, the herring and sardines that are around the pier. And that's just bite size for these medium-sized Spanish mackerel. And, of course, you got bluefish and juvenile jack crevalle and some big blue runners mixed in there, nice sized blue runners, some up to 1.5 pounds. They just kind of add a little spice to it all, and so it's nothing to go down there and catch 40, 50 fish in the course of a morning.
Wow, that's fun. You said juvenile jack crevalle. I don't know if anybody else has ever noticed this in Alabama about jack crevalles, but I feel like there's only two sizes of them. They're either like they're like hardtail size, okay, or they're 27 pounds.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
There's like zero in between. You know, I think
where do those go?
I know. Yeah. I would think like a fun size Jack Crevalle would be like, I don't know, like a 5 or 6 pounder, probably like pull a bunch of drag
like
off.
on a Pin 3000.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you could probably catch him like in a 5-minute span
instead
versus
of 50 minutes.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
I
can count on one hand the number of Jack Crevalle I've caught between those two sizes.
I know.
Yep, you're right about that.
Oh, that's what I want to know. Where do those fish live at? You know?
Yeah, I guess they stay around Tampa or something until they move back up here when they're full grown. And gosh, even at small sizes, they pull really hard.
About like an amberjack.
They're a great option for people fishing the shore before. I've even taken like my panfish ultralights
from the beach
this time of year and wade fish with a couple of small spoons or some little jigs like spec rigs and stuff like that. And you can literally stay in these things all day long. You could catch jacks walking up and down the beach or from the pier. You'll jig up a cloud and there'll be, more than 50
Wow. I was Richard and I were ling fishing a couple of weeks ago, and he had a dead pogie on a knocker rig, and he was kind of fluttering it up and down. I said, "You know what that is, right?" I learned that from the Pier Pounder. He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "That's snobbling."
Yeah, that's right.
I said, "You're snobbling."
Hopefully, we're not too far away from that.
Yeah, that's what made me think about that.
As the water cools off, getting back to what Richard was asking about, the water temp now is still hovering in the mid-80s, and towards the end of September, it starts slipping a little bit because the days are getting shorter.
That's right.
And once we get out of these 90s every day, I think the water temps will slip a few degrees, the ambient temperature in the Gulf. And that should maybe spark for the kings to start moving back closer to shore. It'll spark some of those migrations of the bigger ladyfish and bigger Spanish mackerel to start moving along the coast, and they're feeding along the same food source as well, trying to just eat up as much as they can before they move south for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just from there, move further and further into a fall pattern.
Do you guys see any kind of movement with speckled trout on the beaches this time of year, or is that just kind of non-existent?
There's still a few around, just like you would see on the Gulf beaches, like around Dauphin Island, but I think they're beginning to move back into the bay in the same way. Their migration is up into the estuaries for the fall, and so there's a movement generally away from the beach this time of year. You still see some trout around, but not usually in the numbers that you were seeing, back in May and June.
Mm-hmm.
And even July. It's like they kind of August and September they start tapering off, and they're moving into the deeper part of the bay, and then eventually up into the bay itself. It seems.
I think a lot of times those trout are on the beach all summer long, but competition just gets so high. You've got a lot of things that
bluefish, ladyfish.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then the mackerels
especially.
The mackerel get on the beach and whatnot, and sharks start to show up in heavy numbers when it gets real hot.
Hardheads.
So I think they're still there. I think it's just really hard to catch them.
Yep.
I don't know. That's
they're certainly not as active in that 85-degree water.
No, sir. We were talking about that earlier. It's been really tough on trying to target just keeper size speckled trout recently. You can catch all the 12 to 14-inch fish you want, but it's been really hard to find some.
They were saying the water's been like 91 to 94, Mr. David, up in the bay, and
wow,
it's crazy.
Yeah,
hot.
Somebody was talking about how much of a problem they were having in Little Lagoon with the places where they usually caught fish. There just didn't seem to be any fish, and that's another body of water that very quickly heats up.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of flats in there, and very little water movement.
One way in, one way out.
Yeah, it's very little.
Right? Isn't it one way in, one way out right there?
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, man. We got to get that tip for you before you leave. This week's Onshore Tip is brought to us by CCA Alabama. They're holding a Tag Alabama seminar tomorrow night, September 12th, at the Mobile Big Game Fishing Club in Orange Beach, Alabama. That will be at 6 p.m. After completion of the orientation, you will receive a free recreational tagging kit. That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
I wish it wasn't so far. I would definitely attend that, man. And I talked to Blakely Ellis earlier. They're going to have one over here.
Oh, sweet.
Not too long, so I'll be attending
great.
that. Yep. The tags included will be for speckled trout and redfish. You can check them out at their Facebook page, which is CCA Alabama, or you can get more info at ccaalabama.org. Which
Well, they really have plenty of opportunities to tag some, mid-sized redfish recently around the state pier.
I think it's really cool that everyone is getting involved in that. I see lots of, just private anglers now that have a tagging kit. I think that's really cool.
Yep, and I was a bit on the boat with Dr. Sean Powers from the Sea Lab, and he and Crystal and the people who are running the show with that look to open it up to other species before long. But blackfish is one of them that they really want to open it up to. Possibly a going to ling as well, and flounder. So don't quote me on any of that.
Sure.
They're not about to put all those out, but they're moving in that direction. Right now, we're just
trying to figure out how to do that. Probably.
Yeah, just get a handle on these speckled trout and redfish at first, and then move in that direction. But what you got for a tip today, David?
Well, I was thinking of the Spanish mackerel bite has been primarily the smaller fish, and especially as more and more of the larger fish show up, what a lot of anglers have been doing that have been more successful catching their limit of larger fish or more of the larger fish is stepping up just a little bit with the lure size. Instead of throwing the bubble rig or a tiny spoon, they've been using like the number 8 X-Wrap, or like I was using a rattle trap the other day and having, real good success with that. And it's more of a 3-inch medium-sized bait as opposed to the smaller 1.5 or the tiny thin lures that's on the bubble rig. And it just, kind of the old adage of big bait, big fish. And you're targeting a slightly larger size fish, which is there, but it's like the smaller fish are a little more intimidated by that slightly larger bait, so they tend to kind of, they'll flash at it, but they don't tend to hit it as often. And it just kind of gives you, the angler, I think, an opportunity to target a little bit larger fish as opposed to just whatever comes along and, grabs that bubble rig. And plus it's a lot more fun too. Especially with the Spanish mackerel, there's a lot of visual aspect with it that, seeing that mackerel flash up on the lure is just, it really gets the blood going.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a great tip. A lot of times it's the other way around. You know what I mean? It's that the big bait, big fish thing doesn't always work. You know what I mean? You have to throw something that's more like-sized what's in the water to trigger a bite like that. But that's pretty neat that you picked up on that the past couple of weeks and having some good success with it, it sounds like.
Definitely. You just throwing like a 30-pound test on that, or?
Usually, no. I tackle everything down. I'm throwing a lot of that stuff on 8 to 10 pound is plenty.
Oh, wow. I just thought you'd go a little heavier with targeting Spanish mackerel with those teefers.
Yeah, well, definitely you have to have like a 40-pound monofilament, or I like a light steel leader, like a 27 or 20-pound wire. The funny thing is you can't make it too long because there's so many of the tiny little Spanish in the water that if they see that
swivel
leader bouncing around in front of this slightly bigger fish, they think it's a little tiny minnow and they go after it.
Yeah, that's always the kiss of death, like when you're in the bay slip cork fishing and you see your cork go down and then you reel up nothing. Like you lose your weight, your cork, your everything, you know.
Exactly.
You're like, ooh, fun. I get to
even
re-rig
just
a slip
reeling
cork.
the line across the top, picking up your slack from the pier, and the line lifts and it throws a V in the water.
They see
and
that.
You'll see these little mackerel that are about 6 or 8 inches long snapping at your line, and then sometimes they'll cut the line off.
Yep, and you had a really good tip a couple of weeks ago about the just twisting or doing a twist on your wire leader and just tying your line straight to the wire leader and just losing that swivel altogether. And that's exactly why I like that, because man, we lose so many.
That little haywire twist is a
haywire
real
twist.
Good,
that's right. That's what you called it.
Secondary tip to using those medium-sized lures.
Yep.
And because you don't want so much hardware on there that it shies the fish away, but at the same time, you want to have something to protect your line from getting cut off by a lot of those mackerel.
Oh,
You
yeah.
still sacrifice some lures.
Yeah, and protect your investment into an X-Wrap is not a cheap
Not
lure.
cheap.
It was like $9 or $11 for
None
an
of those are
X-Wrap.
cheap, man.
No, heck no, man.
Well, that's awesome, Mr. David. Tips on tips on tips, as always, from the old Pier Pounder, man. We appreciate having you on, and we'll talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure, guys. Hope y'all keep catching them.
Always. You too, buddy. Thanks.
Thanks, David.
All righty.
All right, Captain Richard. Always good to hear from the old wealth of knowledge, the Pier Pounder.
The Pier Pounder, the engineer.
He is, man.
Love it.
Where are we headed next, buddy?
Let's go talk to old Captain Ugly, Patric Garmeson of Ugly Fishing. How you doing today, bud?
Man, I'm good.
Is it hot enough out there for you?
Steamy day today, man.
Yes, man, you ain't lying. When we were both up at the causeway today, I saw you pulling your boat out, and then I was getting on the road, and there wasn't a whiff of wind on the water at all up there. It was as still as it could possibly be.
Not a breath. The very last spot I wanted to try this afternoon, I went and kind of went through there, and the fish finder said 94.5 degrees.
Ooh, God, that's crazy.
So when I saw that, I said, "Man, boys, I am done.
Yeah,
Let's put this joker on the trailer."
The water temperature is almost as hot as the air temperature.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and even in the mornings, it's starting out 80. I mean, at the coolest I've seen this week is 86.
Yeah, that's what I saw about. I think at one point I looked down early this morning near the Mobile River, and it was like 85.6, like almost 86 degrees or something. You know,
At sunrise.
Unreal how hot it is.
Yeah.
Too bad the fishing has not been as hot as the air temperature lately, huh?
Yeah, it's a grind. There's what I've narrowed my two targeted species to this week, kind of a stretch third depending on who the clients are, but it's been Spanish mackerel on the lower end of the bay around the rigs, using just free line and live shrimp. I even tried some pogies for them, and I couldn't get a sniff. Throw a shrimp out there and you catch you a Spanish. Plenty of ladyfish around to keep going too, but we found a really nice Spanish mackerel bite out there. There wasn't any big hammers, but a lot of nice, like 1.5 to 2.5 pound fish. So like nice drag pulling fishing adventure, and that's probably what I'm going to end up doing tomorrow. Outside of that, it's redfish has been kind of my fallback or my go-to, just depending on what the conditions have been. What I have noticed up until, yesterday we had a really good sight casting day, but up until then, fishing docks and fishing sandbars and cuts and all this stuff like I would normally fish, we're just finding a lot of one fish here, maybe two, but a real patience game to try to get a second or even a third bite.
What are you catching those fish that you're catching on, those reds that are here and there? Top water?
So, man, I haven't had any topwater luck in the few areas I've been fishing. We've been catching them on pogies and bull minnows. Just depending on where we're at around Weeks Bay,
right?
They're eating pogies a lot better, and you get around the docks and pier pilings and bulkheads and stuff, and the bull minnow works better. The good thing about the pogie is you really don't get messed with too bad on the catfish. You will pick up an occasional gaff top. They're still around, but the hardheads will still mess with you a little bit on your bull minnows. And I'm doing a variety of either split shotting that bait and getting it down to the bottom, or popping corking, just depending on what water depth I'm in. Anyway, kind of going forward with what I was talking about with just the one fish here or there. Yesterday, I had a guy that was interested in some sight fishing, and I put my casting platform on the boat. Man, found just a pile of fish north of the causeway, and over the course of the day, we saw probably around 40 fish. And out of those 40 fish, we saw 2 groups of fish. The rest of them were all singles. I mean, it goes directly into what I've been seeing blind fishing is just one fish here, one fish there, and just not a lot of grouping of fish. So you've just really got to be patient on that. But the sight fishing deal, that was a really nice experience. You know, I had a single angler. Me and him get to just hang out on the casting platform. We ease along these grass flats. I try to help point out the fish for him, or sometimes he was seeing the fish before I was, and just work on getting that right cast. We ended up having our best luck throwing artificial shrimp. We threw some different minnow baits and stuff, and sometimes they'd come over there and hit it, other times they wouldn't, and it seemed like the shrimp, they'd go for it and commit to it a lot better.
You throwing a voodoo there, like just on a
do what?
No popping cork, just throwing a voodoo?
No, just a straight shrimp. What we were throwing is American Tackle Company sells a shrimp called a weedless shrimp. It's pre-rigged with a swim bait hook, and it has a little gap on top of the shrimp where it'll completely hide that hook point. So it's real nice for throwing around grass. So
cool, man. That sounds pretty
little
neat.
Shrimp,
that sounds fun.
Little shrimp helped out pretty good.
Patric, I was up there today too, trying to chase some of those reds around the grass, and I had some good luck throwing a gold spoon, which is not a lure that I particularly favor. That's something I kind of picked up.
I have heard that a ton.
Yeah,
Bobcat always talks about the gold spoon.
and that's exactly who I was thinking of when I was bringing this conversation up about the gold spoon. I've watched Bobcat do very good with the gold spoon next to me, and I don't know why I have never favored a gold spoon, but you just got to pick up what you got to pick up what you can when you can, and paid attention. And I caught several fish on a gold spoon. Even sight casted a few fish on a gold spoon today. Is that something that you like to do up there too?
I used to throw it a lot up there and had a lot of luck throwing it more luck throwing it for speckled trout. But it did cross my mind today because, today we ended up having a tough day. I think we saw a dozen fish, and we couldn't get any of them to commit. We were dropping that shrimp near them, and they just would spook off. And after about the 10th one, I started thinking about it. I'm like, man, you know what? I've been continuously doing this, getting refusals. I should have swapped over to something that would be more of a reaction. And that is exactly what that gold spoon would do, is give them that reaction strike instead of them having to think about it or look at it. They don't even, that's what you have to do with fish that are just lethargic and not wanting to eat, is make them react. And you definitely keyed in on that by capitalizing on some of those fish.
Yep. One thing I will mention about the gold spoon that Captain Bobby taught me just by watching him fish is he has zero tip movement in his rod. You just chunk and wind that thing. I used to, and I was working it wrong for a long time. I used to kind of put a little bit of a jigging motion in it to make it
twitch, and then watch it fall a little bit.
Yeah, kind of flutter it along, and I tell you, it's wild. I just kind of picked up on that, and just chunk and wind. That's all you do, and
that's easy enough. I can handle that.
It works really good.
Even Joe could do that.
He's not even here to defend himself.
That's okay.
Joe's not even here to defend.
That's okay.
Yeah, but it's cool, when you're working it along, you kind of know when you're just sitting there straight reeling it, whether to slow it down or pick it up or pick the speed up, because you can feel it kind of clipping the grass here and there.
Pick it up
and I like it to be just barely above that grass. You don't want it real high up in the water column like you would a spinnerbait or something that you're rolling over some grass. You want it kind of just down just about a foot or two, right at the top of the grass as you're moving it along.
Exactly. You want to be feeling that grass every so often, almost in constant contact with the grass.
Yep. Actually, I'm probably, as soon as we get done recording today, I'm going online and order about a dozen gold spoons tonight.
Hey, it ain't gonna hurt nothing.
Heck no.
I heard some guys catching some redfish right here at the mouth of Fowl River, and then it kind of shut down, didn't it?
Yeah, it's just been so hot lately. I really think that's what's got a lot of the inshore fishery boogered up right now. And typically, and I don't know about you, Patric, typically for me this time of year, I almost quit fishing for speckled trout. Just because it just gets.
I remember you saying that last year. You said it's just too tough, like beating your head against the wall.
That's it.
Go after something else that you know is gonna be a little more fun.
That's right. And just like Patrick's kind of keying in on his report this week, he's targeting Spanish mackerel and redfish, and that's what I always tell people. When it gets hot like this, the end of August, September, you're in the dog days of summer. I'm chasing ling. I'm chasing blackfish. I'm chasing redfish. That's basically my three go-to species for this time of the year right now. And like you said, beating your head against the wall. I'm not going to do that. I've done that for long enough.
I'm not a big fan of a big knot on my forehead.
What do you guys think about this weekend coming up? I know we got a little weather coming in, but what do you think the pattern's going to be?
It's probably
Man, I don't see it changing until we get some rain or get something to cool this water off.
Yeah.
But the thing is like just like yesterday, I saw over 40 fish, and we got a bunch of them to bite. We went back to the same areas, did not see a single fish. That's how quickly this stuff can change and turn over. So the fact that if I would have not have gone yesterday, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So if you like fishing, you better still get out there and go. But definitely just keep. I would definitely say that in the on the redfish side of things is keep trying to feed them more of the minnow and minnow imitations. I did get lucky with that shrimp, but I think the minnow baits are going to work better.
All right, Patrick, you got the Hey Cap question this week. This week's Hey Cap sponsor is brought to us by Daycool Heating and Air. Richard, I love getting questions from our readers, man. I think the Hey Cap thing is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
I think everybody's kind of embraced it, and I really enjoy it, man. It just kind of draws out you guys' your soul. You know what I mean? It's those tips, those little pearls of wisdom.
Yeah, and it definitely gets us thinking outside the box about a lot of these questions, you know.
It does,
so
man.
It's a good thing for sure.
For sure. There's nothing like going to the expert to shorten the learning curve. Just like the specialists on their fishing report each week, Daycool Heating and Air are home performance specialists. What does that mean? That means they will inspect your property and find leaking air ducts, hoses, clean out ductwork, and find the HVAC problems before they come nightmares. So check out the heating and cooling specialists who bring you the inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing specialists each week. And mention this ad for a free home performance diagnostic. Contact them at 251-633-5121 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com or on the Daycool Heating and Mobile Air app. License number AL07028. All right, man. Jason Rowe has a really cool question this week, and I know you guys both are going to collaborate on it. It's a little bit in-depth, but I think you guys can handle it. I have faith in you. Jason Rowe says, "Hey, Cap, with live bait availability in bait shops likely becoming limited going into the fall, what can be learned to help locate fish and select future artificial bait strategies while cleaning fish?" So I think what Jason's basically asking is, while you guys are cleaning fish, what do you learn from their bellies to select what artificial baits you're going to be using and the strategies to do it, right?
That's right.
What you guys think?
What I find a lot in the fall, they get real heavy, mainly talking about trout. They get really heavy on pogies. And then I'll also find them where they're feeding on finger mullet. But typically when I start seeing them really gorging themselves on pogies, where you fillet one and he's got 2 or 3 in his belly, and believe it or not, a 2-pound speckled trout can have 3 or 4 friggin' 3-inch pogies in his belly and still eat whatever you're casting at him. But I always feel like
Savages.
I always feel like when they really put the feed bag on a pogie in the fall, that I will break out that rattle trap and we will work them rattle traps till all day long. And a lot of times that's like the only lure you need to pick up.
Yep. Let's go yo-yoing,
when I get into
right?
seeing the finger mullet, going with your finger mullet imitation, like your slick lures. And then if you're like a hard bait guy and you like throwing hard baits, then getting into your stick baits, like your X-Wraps, your mirror lure, like Catch 2000s, and any of your 3-hook slow sinking or floating mirror lures. And then also top water in the morning. So those are probably the 2 most common bait fish you're going to see. And then you'll also get into the fall when they're just flat out gorging themselves and they're eating glass minnows and finding baby bass and bluegill and whatever that swims, they're eating it. That's when whatever you got in your tackle box is going to help you out and catch some fish. But as far as bait shops are concerned, a lot of times most of the bait shops are going to hold live shrimp pretty good up until around Thanksgiving or Christmas at the latest. So shrimp shouldn't be too big of an issue, but definitely keeping like croakers and stuff like that handy is gonna diminish. So anyway, that's my Hey Cap answer.
So you're really just kind of matching the hatch. What's in the belly, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I think we've talked about before, like the slick lure. We feel like that's a very good impression of a pogie.
Yeah, pogie or a mullet.
Or a mullet, right, mullet.
Yeah, something I've really familiarized myself with over the past several years is a cast net. Patric has always been great and utilized using a cast net to go catch pogies or go catch finger mullet around the boat ramps and stuff. He talks about that all the time, and it's something I've picked up on the past several years as well. And familiarizing yourself with a cast net, learning how to taking the time to throw it, buying a quality cast net. It is unbelievable. The difference in like a $60 cast net that you're going to buy at Academy and actually spending $150 on a real cast net that you buy online from somewhere, and how well they open up, how well they work. I've got several different cast nets now, depending on what I'm catching. If I'm catching finger mullet, I've got a finger mullet net. If I'm catching pogies, I've got a pogie net. So, I have two nets, two sizes. They catch two different types of bait. And I know Patric's the exact same way about it. And
make your own bait shop if you can't find it.
Hey, that's right. I know like this time of year when I'm doing all this cobia fishing, I go to the bait shop and I get, like 2 or 3 baskets of ice, and we're like, what about bait? Are you getting any bait? I'm like, no, I'm catching my own today. I'm sorry. Yeah. They don't they don't do quite as well off Captain Richard this time of year as they do in the spring and in the summertime. But what they say in Louisiana, making bait, man, that's the way it goes. Sure.
So what kind of match in the hats you think would be for a bull minnow or something like that?
Definitely any type of like paddle tail grub.
Yep.
Yeah, sweet.
Paddle tail. I always think about like a bull minnow is like a flounder bait. Something I love for flounder is a gulp swimming mullet, or these Fishbites. It's been they make something very similar. There's something that's got a lot of scent in it, and I even add the Fishbite little strips that you can cut to put on there. That really helps out a lot. So anything when you're talking about flounder or redfish especially, you want some kind of scent. A
little stank on it.
Some kind of scent on there I think really goes a long way. What about you, Patric? You like that kind of stuff?
Oh, definitely. And and the thing is it's only going to help you. It's not going to hurt you at all. The only thing that a bigger trout might get a little weary of something that maybe not looking just quite right.
Yeah.
But overall, you're gonna increase your catches, and I think that's most of our listeners are more interested in increasing their catches. So, Fishbites definitely helps do that.
It's a random question, kind of off base. I guess sort of not really, but you guys ever use any of that spray, like the gulp spray or that stank spray?
I've never used the gulp spray. I've either my two go-to scent. Really, I have 3. I guess go-to scents is either just plain old either gulp or Fishbites, along with the Fishbite strips, or Procure. If I'm not using a gulp or a Fishbite, I really like that Procure. It's real sticky. It's almost so sticky to the point where if you put it on a hard bait or a grub, and you take that lure off, or it just stays on your rod, and you pick it up the next day and you take the lure off of the hook keeper, you can feel that grease and still smell it, off of your fingertips before you throw it. It really sticks on there well. And they make, like Procure, makes a zillion different flavors, both for freshwater and saltwater application. It's pretty good stuff. I pretty much religiously use it in the fall and the wintertime when I'm strictly artificial fish fishing. It goes on there every day for me. I'm probably about time to stock up, just like the gold spoons.
Yeah. That's why I was asking. That's right. Use any of that stuff, Patric? Use any spray or Procure, anything like that?
I'll use some of that Procure like Richard's talking about, and I've used some of the Voodoo sauce, but it almost seems like Voodoo sauce may be actually pure Procure in a different label, but the stuff actually just really sticks and bonds to whatever you put onto it, and it does, man. You can make probably a dozen or more casts, plus catch a few fish on it, and still have some of the residue, some of the slipperiness, the oiliness of it, like Richard was talking about.
And that's a spray? That Procure's a spray?
It's like a gel. It's like a gel. It comes like in a little 2-ounce or a 9-ounce bottle. And, man, it takes you forever to use it because, like, a little bit goes I usually lose the bottle or it gets lost. It gets lost in the boat somewhere, and I'll find it 6 months later and be like, oh, I was looking for that, But it goes a really long. And I don't do it near as much as Patric does. Like Patric's saying every dozen casts or so, man, I probably fish with it for 2 hours before I put some more on there, If you're trout fishing, I'm not thinking about it quite as much because I don't think trout are such scent feeders as redfish are.
Sure.
They're more visual feeders in my opinion. But some of trout fishing, it's every once in a while. I'll just smear a little bit on there or whatnot. And but if I'm red fishing, I'm definitely maybe applying it a little bit more often than not.
Yeah.
Not like I said, not quite to the extent Patric's maybe doing it there.
Patric's a little more stanky than you is what you're saying.
Yeah, he is. That's why I call him ugly. He's ugly and stinky, huh?
Oh, Lord.
It gets real ugly when that stuff gets dumped off in the bottom of the boat or something.
That's a fact.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my buddy gave me like a leftover bottle the other day of the shrimp stuff where a squirrel had gotten in his in his shed and chewed a little bit off. And he's like, here, take this and refill some of your bottles or something. And I was like real hesitant to do it. I took it anyway, and where do you think I found it?
Bottom of the boat.
Bottom of the boat, dumped over in a. So it took about
15, 6 months to get out of there.
Well, just 15 minutes of cleaning,
Oh man! All right, Captain Patric, we appreciate the hate cap question, man, and keep whacking them, buddy. I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
It's a great report, buddy.
All right, guys. Look forward to listening to it.
All right, Captain Patrick, if anybody wants to book a trip with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Give me a call, shoot me a text, 251-747-1554, or they can go to my website, uglyfishing.com. You can look through some of the different stuff that I have on the website, or you can just click the Book Now button. That'll take you to Fishing Chaos, my booking app, and or my booking calendar, live calendar. So you'll be able to see all my open dates, all my book dates, and that's the easiest way to do it. You can go ahead and do it all without calling me, or you can give me a call and we can talk about some dates and what works and what looks good and book it that way. But good and versatile there.
Awesome.
Man, fishing chaos makes life easy for a guy.
Oh, my God.
I've been utilizing that, too, and I absolutely love it. It is the best little tool I've gotten this year.
Yep. Awesome.
Yep.
All right, Captain Patrick. Keep whacking them, bud. Talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Be good.
All right, Richard. That's always good stuff from old Captain Patric Garmeson, man.
Oh, man. I love talking to me some ugly.
I know, man. I'm excited to have Captain Chris Vecsey on. I know he does all kind of stuff. He's at Sam's Bait and Tackle over there. He does kayak fishing, inshore, offshore.
Sword fishing.
All kinds of stuff.
I love seeing the swordfish.
You never know what he's up to, man. What's going on, Chris? How you doing, buddy?
Not a whole lot. Doing really good.
What's the name of the game over there, buddy? I know you usually fish on the east side. Well, to us, it's far east side.
Oh, yeah. He's like way far away.
Might as well be a whole other country down here.
Y'all have like clean water and stuff down there, huh?
You can actually see through
it. We're close enough that, every now and then y'all let your dirty water over here. Lately, not so much a problem. It's actually been really clear inshore. Offshore, not the case. Offshore is that if I go 100 miles south of Orange Beach right now, the water is dirtier there than it is in the bay here.
It's crazy.
That blows my mind.
That seems to be the general consensus.
It's got to be just this hot weather is just creating this, some kind of bloom or something out there. I don't know what the deal with
Dead zone.
is. Yep.
Yeah.
What you been up to personally,
the
brother?
Mississippi River, it was above flood stage, all summer long. So,
that's a big factor.
So much fresh water out there.
Certainly.
What you been killing here the past couple weeks?
All right. Well, me personally, I've kind of, I've been inshore most of the time. This time of year, water temperatures are still pretty high, but, we have a really big abundance of bait inshore right now, especially on flats, around docks. So I've been doing a lot of red fishing. Finally started catching some good speckled trout this week. There's a lot of big mangrove snapper, caught some nice flounder this week, and then even some big pompano inshore on the flats versus on the beach. So it's been a pretty good mixed bag inshore. It's the other option, bottom fishing offshore. Bottom fishing has been really solid. It's kind of been the plan B, unfortunately, for a lot of guys that, it's September. We're supposed to be blue water fishing. We're supposed to have a hot white marlin bite right now, wahoo. Yep. But the water temperatures are still real high offshore around the nipple, the elbow, and the water is, it's ugly, and that's all there is to it. So you got to have something to fall back on, and luckily this area has plenty to fall back on.
Where do you typically fish, Chris, just for the people listening? What's your main stomping grounds over there?
My inshore fishing, because of where I'm at, I'm in a good central location. I can fish west to, the mouth of Mobile Bay, Bon Secours River, all down the Fort Morgan Peninsula in general, the ICW, and I'll fish as far east as Pensacola Bay and even into Santa Rosa Sound at times. So I've got a pretty wide area that I cover, both in the kayak, on foot, and then on my skiff, of course.
You guys been seeing any speckled trout, redfish? What you been targeting mostly?
Yeah, I mean, redfish in particular have been my main target day in, day out. We've had a really good run of pretty much every size redfish you can think of, from a 14-inch rat red to 40-plus inch bulls, and then even in water as shallow as 10 inches deep. This week in particular, I worked a lot of grass flats, focusing on potholes and grass, sand edges, and the sight fishing has just been outstanding.
That's funny. I saw. I didn't even think to talk about this with Patric earlier when we Patric and I both fished up on the causeway today this morning, and I saw we were fishing grass flats up there. I saw something giant moving around. I couldn't really tell right what it was. I kind of trolling motored over there, and then I saw it was a big bull red, and I had a gold spoon on, and I kind of cast at him a couple of times, and he never really reacted to it. And then he kind of just sat still in the grass in the boat.
Maybe they won't see me.
I know. Well, I know. The boat drifted right up to him, almost to where I thought the trolling motor was going to hit him. And I kind of yo-yoed the spoon right in front of his mouth. I had 2 or 3 foot of line out of the tip of my rod. I'd yo-yoed that spoon in front of him and ate it. He must have been 46 inches long. He ended up pulling off because it got like a bunch of grass on the down on the lure, man. But that's exactly what we're kind of seeing over this way too, because I saw a bunch of little chi-chi redfish, like he's saying 14, 18 inches long all the way up to man size, So that's
what are you guys catching those reds on,
bait
Chris?
Selection, depending on what you're seeing, I keep a few different rods rigged and usually a fly rod. If there's smaller fish, slot reds all the way up to mid slot, I'll throw some kind of crab imitation at them. But when you get into those legitimate fish, like you said, like 40 plus inches, if you watch those fish, they're chasing full size mullet. They're fish are eating a lot of bigger baits, and that's pretty much what I end up throwing at them, is something that imitates a larger bait fish.
It's a big predator.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we saw I definitely saw some bull redfish today showering some mullet on the outer edges of the flats. It was pretty fun to watch, Yeah,
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What's been going on with the bottom fishing over there, buddy? I know you keep your fingers on the pulse all the time at Sam's Bait and Tackle.
Well, like I was saying, that's the plan B right now. Yeah, I've had a lot of people coming in the store and asking me, I've pulled up like the Hilton's charts and stuff, showing them the watercolor out there, showing them the water temperatures. And most guys are wanting to go out trolling for wahoo and billfish. And that's just not the best plan A right now. But the good thing is the scamp bite has been outstanding. We catch a lot of big vermilion snapper, lane snapper, nice little mixed bag of bottom fish. And then, of course, there's always deep drop in the mix with that as well. So, people that are going offshore are still able to put together a really nice bag, box of fish with pretty minimal effort. The main thing I always suggest to anybody going out there is, take the time to get good live baits. Putting your pinfish trap out is one thing, but like if you're really wanting to get into, quality scamp, and then of course those bigger amberjack, bigger amberjack are going to want bigger live baits, ruby lips, things like that. For scamp, there's almost no substitute for a live cigar minnow or a Spanish sardine. And those are baits that you just got to take a little bit more time to get.
For sure, man. I agree with that. All right, Chris, man, we really appreciate the report this week. And, we can't let you get out of here without that tip. This week's offshore tip is brought to us by KillerDock. As anglers, we put a lot of time, money, and passion into our fishing, but most of us don't have a fish cleaning station that we're proud of. Man, I was talking to Jay before the show, actually, and they're doing some really cool stuff. He was telling me about there's a big giant Viking building a big boathouse over in Orange Beach, and they're putting one of those 8-foot stretches in a 10-foot canopy.
Oh my goodness!
Under that boathouse, or on the dock on that boathouse. I'm pretty excited to see that.
We're gonna have a party under that thing.
I'm ready. I like the party. I'm pretty excited to see the end result of that, man. These guys, there's nothing these guys can't do, man. KillerDock, they use marine-grade aluminum to make fabulous fish cleaning tables and stunning canopies that will keep us out of the sun. You guys go check them out at KillerDock.com or on Facebook at their KillerDock site.
You know what I can't believe about mine is how clean it stays.
All the time.
They coat the metal, they coat everything, so it just stays nice and clean, easy to spray off at the end of cleaning your fish and whatnot. Keeps you nice and cool, especially right now.
I know you like your clean feet.
Oh my goodness gracious, you know.
What you think for a tip there, Chris?
I think I'm going to reiterate kind of what I was touching on there with the bottom fishing, because we were talking about, I mentioned bait, having the right bait, and it's not just the bottom fishing, it's also the inshore right now. I mentioned having cigar minnows, sardines, hardtails, better quality baits offshore, and that's something I'm going to get. It always draws the additional questions. Okay, where do I catch those? How do I catch those? And usually for for sardines, for cigar minnows, sabiki rigs, usually number 6, number 8. I like the ones with, the little glow bead on the head of them. But I'm going to target structures in anywhere from 30 to, say, 60 feet of water usually for those. Now, structures could be a lot of different things. There are plenty of public structures, that are published, on OutdoorAlabama.com, many places, and on a lot of charts you can purchase from most tackle shops. Any public structure in that depth range will hold clouds of bait as we come into the fall. And it's just a matter of taking the time to get out, position over those structures and drop those sabiki rigs. For hardtails, for ruby lips, like I mentioned, you got to go a little bit bigger. I'll usually use a 2 or 3 hook rig for ruby lips. Small circle hooks, like a number 2 or even a number 4 tip with a really small piece of squid. That's going to do better on the ruby lips. And probably the main tip I could say about catching those and more or less keeping them alive is when you hook up to those, you need to reel them up slowly. They're no different than a snapper or grouper. If you bring them up too fast, they will suffer from barotrauma and get the buggy eyes and your live bait becomes a dead bait. For inshore, on the same lines, having the right bait. If you go and you buy live shrimp right now, live shrimp will catch obviously everything, but our inshore waters are so heavily plagued this time of year with pinfish that live shrimp doesn't usually go real far. The guys that do, that have more consistent and successful inshore trips, know you've got to take the time, throw the net, try to get finger mullet, try to get smaller, LYs, pilchards, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
But croakers and finger mullet in particular will usually yield a lot better quality inshore fish.
That's awesome, man.
And I would say that's probably inshore or offshore. It's taking the time to get better quality bait. It's real easy to go buy frozen bait. It's real easy to go buy live bait. But that's usually not, a lot of time that's not what the better quality fish are feeding on.
Yep, I agree with that. It's not where it's at. I think Captain Richard can attest to that as well.
That's right. Yep. Man, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right?
That's a fact. Yep.
That's right.
Like
separates the men from the boys.
Yep, that's like you said, it's real easy to go buy frozen bait and, some days you'll get lucky and that'll work real good, but the guys who really know what they're doing, you'll
consistently.
See.
Yep.
I know doing what I do, doing what I do day in, day out, hard work yields much more.
Greater reward.
Yeah,
sure.
Greater reward. That's right.
There's no doubt about that.
That's right. In a lot of days, I work just as hard at catching the bait as I do either catching fish or not catching fish.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Because it's worth it and it's necessary.
Yep. And then taking the precaution to keep it alive in your live well all day long too. That's another science we could sit here and talk about for hours. Hours with too. Making bait is definitely it's part of it. You know what I mean? And it gets to where you know how it goes with some of these billfish guys, man. Like when they're live baiting these marlins and stuff, it's like sometimes it's the guys who know how to catch the blackfins.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Keep them alive.
It's not necessarily about catching the marlin. It's about being able to catch the bait to catch the
quality
marlin.
Bait, and how you with that in that regard, how you catch the bait. Did you catch it on a lure, treble hooks, or a J hook? Did the fish hit the deck when you run hooking it? It's got to be top quality, otherwise it gets thrown right back in.
Yep, it's all about those little fine details that they'll kind of set you apart from everybody else.
You're exactly right.
Well, Chris, it was great talking to you, man, as usual, and that was a great report. And thanks for the tip, and thanks for your time.
Yep, thanks for being on, Chris. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes, sir. Thanks, man. Captain Richard, that's an awesome report.
Ooh, hard to beat. To beat that. You can't beat that with a stick.
Good guys, right there, man.
Man, great.
Man, speaking of good guys, what a great country we live in. You guys know we're may not know we're recording this on the night of 9/11, and Richard and I have been a little touched. We just want to thank all of our first responders, and thank you for your service, Captain Richard Rutland.
Yes, sir.
Certainly appreciate that. And we just want to have a moment of silence. If you guys don't mind, take off your hats and put your hands on your heart. Whew, got a little emotional there, man.
Yeah, I know, dude. Get a little teary-eyed.
Well, another great report, man. Hope we can get after them tomorrow. It's crazy to think about what 9/11 changed for us.
It did.
You and I were talking about that a little earlier.
We were. And I remember, my dad passed away several years ago. And I remember he and I having a conversation. And he said, it wasn't really – what we lost was much greater than just the men and women that were involved with the tragic
they took a lot more than the lives they took that
and that's
day.
what he said. We lost a lot more than just those lives.
100%.
We lost feeling of security here on our own soil. You know what I mean? There's only been 2 attacks on U.S. soil that I can think of, that have been in the past century anyway. Pearl Harbor and then this, and
to that scale.
Yeah,
Sure.
to that scale, and it
changed a lot.
It really did, and golly, it gets better every day, though, I think. But something that's still right there in the back of your mind, even though it was that 17, 18 years ago, something like that.
It's crazy.
Yep.
I still remember. Do you remember where you were?
I do. I was a senior in high school in history class.
Yeah, I was a
Watched
junior.
it happen on TV. I don't remember if we had a TV in the room or they rolled one in or something, but it was
tragic, man.
Tough to think about, but we're a better place. We at least we took a precaution and made the world a better place as a result of it.
I just don't want people to forget about it.
That's right.
I think it's really easy to forget. It really is.
Yep.
You get complacent and just don't forget. Don't forget about roots, morals, the heart of this country and what it really means.
Yep.
Well, on a lighter note, man, what'd you learn today?
Oh man. Something I kind of picked up on today, we're kind of hitting a transition period here. The days, like David was talking about, the days are starting to get shorter. It doesn't feel like fall is going on because it's really, really hot, but fall is coming.
We're wishing it really, really hard.
Oh, my goodness. But, everybody's talked about the influx of bait that we've had come in close to shore right now. That's always a typical moving towards a fall pattern and whatnot. And so anyway, we're not in our normal groove of how the fish usually act and bite and react to their surroundings. And so what sounds like we're all doing right now is targeting other species and going with what's working. You know what I mean? Not beating our head against the concrete.
You're right.
Trying to force the speckled trout to bite or trying to...
What's funny is I can remember you saying this exact same thing this time last year.
Yeah,
I guarantee you, if you go back to listen to this week or maybe, a couple weeks giveaway,
right,
we talked about the same exact thing.
And then like Chris was talking about all his customers that come in over there at Sam's want to go trolling for, he said the white marlin bite should be off the chain right now.
August, man. August and into September. I remember always.
And it's just not happening. So Chris brought up going and doing the bottom fishing thing, amberjack, scamp, grouper and vermilion snapper and doing that thing. Plus we got the little short snapper season window coming up. Patric and I are targeting redfish right now. It's been a real hot bite some days.
Yeah.
And then
Spanish.
And then Spanish mackerel with both Patric and with David.
Yep.
I'm not on the Spanish train.
That's okay.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you do different things as well.
I do.
Get a little more offshore, etc.
Yep, I like to chase the ling this time of year.
King-a-ling?
The king-a-ling, that's it.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, man. I learned the same thing. Things are a little different right now, so you need to be a little different as well. Mm-hmm. Don't get stuck in what you think you need to target necessarily.
That's right.
Listen to what you guys are doing and target something a little bit different.
Yep, and part of that, too, I think, is keeping a log. Just paying attention to I preach this all the time. Is pay attention to what you're doing. You know what I mean? When you figure something out or you bump into something, write it down. Keep a log of it. Write down what time of the year it was, what the water temperature was like, what the air temperature was like, tide movement, water clarity, things like that. Man, you'll really it doesn't keeping a log doesn't for me has not paid dues until several years down the road. But you start to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And
starts to make a little sense.
Yeah, you get close to putting it all the way. You're never going to put the puzzle all the way together with fishing.
That's just fishing in general.
Yeah.
That's why we keep doing it every day.
But you start to get close with things like that.
For
and
sure.
That's something I really enjoy.
Well, and even if that, you may not know what to do on that day, but you'll know what not to do.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. History always shows itself
That's
again.
right, eventually.
So,
man, what a great show this week, you guys. We're going to wrap this up. You guys, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks, Jason Rowe, for that Hey Cap question. He submitted that on a Facebook post that I made earlier. He'll be getting that C-Deck ruler from the CCA Alabama. You guys get your Hey Cap questions in to alabama@bestfishingreport.com. We monitor that as much as we can and try and make those Facebook posts. You guys get those Hey Cap questions in, and Keep whacking them.
Heck yeah.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by the Alabama Marine Resources Division. They remind all recreational anglers one snapper check vessel report is to be submitted before red snapper are landed in Alabama. For more information about snapper check, please visit outdooralabama.com.
Also, Ugly Fishing Charters with Captain Patric Garmeson. You can check us out at uglyfishing.com or call us at 251-747-1554.
Also brought to you by Foster Contracting, Fortified Roofing Pros. Did you know you can save up to 40% on your homeowner's insurance with a fortified roof? Learn more at fortifiedroofingpros.com or call them at 251-973-9999. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Hilton's Real-Time Navigator, bringing you the highest quality online satellite fishing chart since 2004. Your source for sea temps, altimetry, currents, and watercolor at hiltonsoffshore.com.
And also, Great Days Outdoors, the South's finest hunting and fishing magazine. Pick up your copy wherever magazines are sold or check them out at greatdaysoutdoors.com. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by me, Joe Baya, and National Land Realty. If I can help you in any way with the purchase or sale of land in Alabama or Florida, whether it's timberland, farmland, recreational land like hunting land, or even agricultural land or ranch land like a horse farm, drop me a message at jbaya@nationalland.com. That's JBAYA@nationalland.com.
This is Captain Richard Rutland, and this report is brought to you by Cold Blooded Fishing. You can find us at www.coldbloodedfishing.com.